Member Live Chair Russell.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and we are back. Thanks for joining us again. Those of you at home that are still enjoying this budget discussion, we will do a quick update from our CAO, Mike Karkopoulos, and for those still following at home, we are still on Project 21, the Campton Park study.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to answer the previous question before the recess that we took, Councillor Brunet had asked about if there was another funding source. Staff have spoken at the break, both Ms. Dale and Ms. Truwala and I, and the cash in lieu fund is an area where we think we can fund this particular project. So there will not be a levy impact. And I think the other comment that I want to make, and at the risk of, I think, belaboring the comment, there was a reference that the other location is ready. The other location, I just want to remind council, is not ready. It is not in the ownership of the municipality. It is subject to a future development, a development that is not taken place yet. And so I just want to be clear what we're talking about. One is about accelerating a park for Camden, and the other one is a future potential park location. And so I think that's why staff is also suggesting we move forward in this direction.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. And we have Deputy Mayor Mikulik. A further question.
Thank you for that, Mr. CAO. So, like, can I get an explanation? Like, so what, when we do receive ownership of that property on Fly Road, what will become of that?
Of the old park?
No, of the current proposed park. What will become of the, what will become of that property when that does come into our possession?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could again try to clarify, and Kathleen can also chime in here. We wouldn't be receiving that, Councillor Mikulik or Deputy Mayor Mikulik, because it's one property owner. What we're suggesting is assuming the proposed park location, which is in green on your map, versus the red one that is on Fly Road. So we wouldn't be retrieving or assuming both. We would be looking at the proposed park location in place of the park location that was identified in the secondary plan.
Okay, so who currently would be providing that current location? Is it the developer of the Mountain Village subdivision that currently owns that property, or?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, I mean, so I'll just seek some guidance. I don't think there's a problem with us sharing the name of the individual and the property owner, but I'll look to the clerk, and then I see Ms. Dale's taken her microphone off so she can chime in as it relates specifically to the ownership there. But it is the same owner that owns the proposed park location and what is identified in the secondary plan.
Okay.
So I don't know if the clerk or Kathleen have any comments on a discussion as it pertains specifically to who the owner is.
So through the chair to CAO, I will let Kathleen respond to that, but I do want to be careful on information that is about individuals sharing that if it hasn't been made public already. So Kathleen?
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, at this point, the person's name is not public, but as our CAO mentioned, where the red line, which is the location in the secondary plan, that is owned by the same individual as the person that wants to convey the lands in the green location. So they are the identical owner. But the name has not been made public yet, so.
Okay, I'm not sure about like like traditionally when a subdivision is created, that there's land exchanged for parks. And I wasn't sure if it was the proposed subdivision that's being built providing the land for that park. That was what I was thinking, but I'm not certain. I don't have a detailed enough drawing to know that, to make that call. But still, nonetheless, you know, like, even though there is a former salvage yard bordering that park, my thoughts are that one day that could possibly be a brownfield redevelopment site. Now, whether that happens or not, I'm not sure. But that's a whole nother conversation. And I just think that this whole discussion deserves more of a discussion than we can have, you know, when we're discussing 35 or 40 different projects as well. So that's why those are the concerns I have. And I just wanted to bring those forward. That's as far from an accessibility perspective, I just see that, you know, the current location to me is more accessible than the proposed location. That's
Okay.
without being a horse. That's my thoughts.
So Deputy Mayor, again, we haven't gotten to it yet because our queue keeps on queuing up. But we are eventually going to get to an amendment that has been moved by Councillor Timmers. You do have the ability to make a friendly amendment to that, which we can vote on that portion. We can't, I'll check with the clerk here. You can make a friendly amendment to defer or no, Madam Clerk?
So there is no friendly amendment. So this would be either, he's got a few options. He can amend the amendment, which is the motion that was put forward to amend this original one was that council amend Camden Park Studies to be used for park equipment in the amount of $200,000. If Councillor Miklik wants to amend that amendment, he needs to detail what that amendment to the amendment would be. What I'm hearing from Councillor Miklik is that you vote to do several things: vote to defer, vote to remove this from the budget altogether. So you have a couple of options in front of you, Councillor.
And you're on mute.
So my thoughts are that we remove it for now and revisit this in Q1, similar to you know, the Jordan Park, or similar to any other projects that we may not be certain of at this time. And I don't, me personally, I don't feel confident in you know, appropriating 200,000, and whether it's from reserves, whether it's from parkland, or whether it's from levy, at this time, I'm not comfortable appropriating 200,000.
Okay, so just to clarify,
Mr. Chair,
hold on, Councillor Timmers, we'll come back to you just one second. We're doing procedure here first. So again, if you are going to, Deputy Mayor, you can do a amendment to remove or defer. Is that right, Julie?
Yes.
Madam Clerk? So if
that fails, so whatever amendment to the amendment you're doing, we vote on that. If that fails, we go back to the amended version, which is to amend the Camden Park Studies to be used for Camden Park equipment. So what would you like to do, Councillor Miklik?
Defer.
So we can put that motion right now, and that means we would have to actually vote on that.
Okay, can I just also ask a clarification? So we've had a kind of motion from Councillor Timmers in the queue here that hasn't been voted on.
Right, but a councillor has amended that motion. And so procedurally, you need to vote on the amendment of the amendment, the amended version of the amended, and then we vote on, oh my gosh, I'm getting tired. I'm also a little hungry at this point, but so then we would, if that fails, then we go back to the amended version of that motion. So Councillor Miklick's first.
Okay, and can we get a comment from Councillor Timmers before we go to that vote?
The motion is on the floor.
Okay, so we can't. Okay, so then we have a motion on the floor. What Julie said. Does anybody need clarification on
So,
what we're voting on?
so Councillor Miklick moves to amend the amendment that council defer the Camden Park studies.
Okay,
Are
Madam
you
Clerk,
Looking,
Madam Clerk, can you please call the vote?
so Councillor Brunet,
No.
Councillor McPherson,
No.
Councillor I'm sorry, he's absent. Councillor Reimer,
No.
Councillor Rajima,
No.
Councillor Timmers,
No.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
that is lost. So we will go back now to the discussion of the original amendment, which is that council amend Camden Park studies to be used for park equipment in the amount of $200,000. Now, we can go back to Councillor Timmers as she had her hand up.
Please do. Councillor Timmers?
I don't have any more comments. Let's just call the question, please.
I see no other hands in the queue. Madam Clerk, can you please call the vote?
So I just need clarification for when this amendment goes through, that the council amend the Camden Park studies to be used for park equipment in the amount of $200,000. Do we need to clarify where that funding is coming from?
Yes, so from the Cash in Lieu Parkland Reserve Fund.
So I'll call the vote. And Councillor Timmers, you moved that motion. So Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes.
and that carries.
Okay, that's being completed. We will now move on to Project 22, the Mount View Cemetery Maintenance Area. Does anybody on council have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, we will move to Project 23, the Monument Restoration. Does anyone on council have any questions or concerns? Councillor Brunet. You're on mute, Councillor Brunet.
Yes, I'm on mute, but I'm also trying to find. So again, Councillor Russell, if you would bear with me, my ward mate wanted me to chime in on his behalf on this one, and I'm just trying to find it here. So just bear with me for 1 second. So Chair, with regards to the monument restoration, now Councillor Pachariva has reached out to some staff. I believe he's reached out to Paul Deaney, as well as maybe some staff through community services. But he wanted it tabled tonight during this discussion. And again, I'm struggling here to find it, so just bear with me here for 1 second. Okay, yes, I have it here now. So Councillor Pachariva was asking staff if it would be possible, instead of having this tombstone restoration, coming out of the capital, money of 50,000 and then another 50,000 forecasted over the next number of years. So a total of 100,000 over the next, say, 10-year cycle. If it would be possible that this money could be put into a reserve with regards to, the cemetery burial fees and stuff like that. So again, I know this has been raised with staff. I don't know if any staff wanted to comment on it on behalf of Councillor Pachariva's original concern that he brought up with staff, but he wanted me to table it during this discussion on this particular project. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair Russell.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Renee. And I believe I saw Shannon McKay's or Director McKay's hand come off the mute. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, to the councillor and to the councillor who asked the question and is, I believe, watching this evening. So the town does charge a care and maintenance fee on lots, foundations, and burials, including both interments and cremations. And per the regulations, we are only able to use the interest and not the principal capital of that. So we actually do more than many municipal cemeteries do in this regard. And we would like to increase those fees going forward, but we've elected to not in 2021 for obvious reasons. And also I did share with the councillor that the entire care and maintenance fund, as dictated by the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, is actually being reviewed, and they're seeking input from cemetery operators and owners, and they're looking at the regulatory amendments to help address concerns that they've heard, so that we expect there will be changes in 2021 also coming forward from that. And hopefully they will be positive changes, but we won't know until we hear back on those changes. So I think it's good to be reminded as well that, we have inactive cemeteries, a lot of inactive cemeteries, and because they're inactive, we're not getting care and maintenance from anything in those cemeteries. Yet as a municipality, we are still responsible for the care and maintenance of those cemeteries.
Thank you, Director McKay. Councillor Brunei, does that satisfy Councillor Pachariva on your behalf?
Absolutely, Chair, and I want to thank the director for those comments on some clarification for this Project 23. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm sure Councillor Pachariva, my vice chair, is clapping at home in his recliner. Seeing no other questions or concerns regarding Project 23, we will now move on to Project 24, Hilary Bald Park Lighting. Anyone on council have any questions or concerns? We have two, and I believe Councillor McPherson was first in the queue. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was a fairly heavily discussed item just in general when it came up, when we went through the first run through. And, I think the audience was split as to whether we start down the road of lighting our parks or not. And I certainly appreciate the safety piece of this, and that if there is a risk of any safety issue, that we need to lean towards making the park safe. My question is probably twofold. First is, do we in fact want to start down this road of lighting parks? Because this will not be the last if we do that. And more specifically to Hilary Bald, I guess I see the benefit of the light standard, and it being singular. I guess that's going to take care of the entire park. But I don't see the same benefit to light underneath the shade as I would see that would certainly encourage people to hang around, after dark. And I'm of the opinion that it's time to go home. That we need to encourage people to use the park during the day, and when it's dark, go home. So I guess the the question would first be, does council support the lighting of parks? And then secondly, specifically to the light under the shade, what is the benefit of having that shade lit?
So as a clarifier, are you asking, does staff support the lighting of the parks? Because if you're asking council.
I think, pardon me, Mr. Chair, I think I would ask the staff about the lighting of parks and starting at Hillary Bald and expanding out to all of our parks.
Okay.
And where has that discussion gone within Town Hall?
Director McKay?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the councillor. I think what we've talked about as staff is we actually would like to get away from using the term lighting parks and use the terminology lighting pathways. And that for us is an important clarification. We do have a park bylaw right now that stipulates our parks close when the lights go off. And we as well do not want to invite people to be using our parks. That being said, we do believe in providing safe pathways. So the proposed, part of the proposed lighting was strategically, if you look at page 97 of the binder, strategically placed to light a key intersection, if you will, pathway in Hillary Bald that people traverse quite frequently. That was the first area that we had discussed as staff and with the consultant when we did the CPTED audit. The reason that the shelter was identified is because it is quite common to have shelters lit. We will have the new shelter in Rotary Park lit. We will have as we will have the new shelter in Prokridge Park lit. Now that's not to mean that these will stay on all night. They will be on photo sensors, they will be on timers and can be controlled, but they will be lit for use if we would like them to be lit. In the case of Hillary Bald, we were having some challenges with, I would say, older youth congregating in a particular area of Hillary Bald, closer to the playground structure, which if you look at your aerial photo would be just to the left of where the shade structure is. So it was recommended that if we wanted to move them away from the residents, we could light that, but we could still have it go off at 11 o'clock and discourage people from staying in the park. So the idea is not to light the park. And we've had this discussion lots, I should share with council, on the new pump track and skate park at Rotary Park. We don't wish to light the park to invite individuals to use the parks throughout the evening, but we do wish to appropriately light pathways, which we know people will be using through the park. So that is why for this particular park, those two locations were chosen.
Okay, thank
So
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll wait for other conversation. I think I made my point. I'm not supportive of wherever we're lighting parks. I wasn't aware that we're doing these other park locations. So my thoughts are, let's enjoy the park while it's lit during daylight, and let's move on in the evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Brunet.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Russell. I have similar questions. I have similar comments. I have similar feelings here, and I'm not, going to get into the weeds. Starting to talk about, park lighting versus pathway lighting. I just think we're going down a very, very slippery slope. I remember the night that we talked about this, and before we were even finished the conversation, we had someone else on council talking about supporting lighting at Jack Simpson Park, and then it'll be St. Vladimir, and then it'll be down in Vineland, and I just think it's a snowball effect. I guess through you, Chair, I would just listening to Director McKay. I understand what you're saying. We might have a unique situation at Hillary Bald. I know we've had people congregating there. We've had the NRP involved. But when you talk about lighting these pathways, from a safety standpoint, So like, where's the next step? Like, are we going to maintain all these pathways and trails now in the wintertime? We're going to have lights coming on LEDs, and now we're going to have people walking these trails. And, you know, are they typically open in the wintertime? And now LED lights are coming on and somebody slips and falls, and yet they're not really supposed to be open because we're not maintaining the trails in the winter. I just think we're going down a whole lot of different avenues here, and I just have some concerns. I'm not saying I don't want to support this, but I just think we're opening up a whole nother kettle of fish here. I really do. I'll leave my comments at that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bernay. Seeing no other hands in the queue, I do have a question myself, Director McKay. Again, looking at the number and the project that it's entailed, $75,000 for what seems like 2 light standards seems a little bit extravagant. I know there is obviously installation kind of budgeted in there, but can you give any insight into why that price is so high for 2 lights?
Certainly, Chair. I did to make sure my mic was unmuted. We did receive a number of quotes in the range of 50 to 75. There were a lot of unknowns of how we tap into the source, the main source. So that could potentially be reduced. It could also be reduced if we were to explore, because this is wired lighting, if we were to explore solar lighting, but then there's additional annual maintenance that comes with solar lighting. So if council were to want us to proceed and want us to reduce it, we could look at that and what that would look like and bring back those costs and those details. But we did receive a number of quotes which were in this estimate, not going deep enough to explore a few of the items that they couldn't accurately quote on.
Okay, thank you, Director McKay. We've got Councillor Renchema up next. Councillor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Councillor Russell and I were at Hilliard Park with Director McKay and the CEPTED consultant. And it was an interesting conversation, and he talked about different lighting principles to avoid crime and where lighting should go and shouldn't go, and different options. So I guess my question is, the 2 lights that are proposed here, is that in line with what the CEPTED consultant told us?
For you, Chair, to the council, yes, that's exactly what the CEPTED consultant told us, and we're just reviewing that report now. We just received it, but it is in line with that.
So the purpose of this lighting and the placement is for crime prevention in the park?
Through you, Chair, to the council, not just for crime prevention, but also enabling safe travels for users walking or going through the park. And that is why that location centered to where the pathway branches off was chosen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I appreciate that. We've been hearing for many years from the people around the area of that park that they'd like to see some kind of lighting on that pathway. So I'm glad it's come forward, and I'm hoping that people will support it. I think we have to look at parks on an individual basis and see what kind of lighting is appropriate for the park. Mm-hmm. And again, this has been a recommendation from the CEPTED consultant that the director brought in particularly to look at this particular park. So I thank the director for bringing it forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gemma. And we have Mayor Easton up next.
Mr. Chairman, my recollection of discussions around lighting in parks isn't one of, and forgive me if I'm completely off track here, but I don't believe that we have had a continuous full discussion about lighting. We have had individual discussions. We have had some principles brought forward. We have had additional information, and now we have quotes to support it. But when I hear councillors saying, you know, having the discussion about the principle of whether we're going to have lighting or not, I have to ask the question, have we missed a step here? Now, the reference here is the Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan. So I guess the question I'll ask Ms. McKay is, what does it say in there about the principle? And when we approved that plan, did we approve the principle? And that's how we've started to move forward on this road.
Through you, Chair, to Madam Mayor. Yes, correct, Madam Mayor. We approved the principle. So if you look at the aligning recommendations, one is to maintain commitment to universal accessibility and through CPTED principles, which we've cited and talked about here, and a plan for projects that address accessibility requirements and capital improvements. So it's in principle. It does not say in our recommendations that we should light Park A, B, C, or D, but in principle, that is what we are aligning to the recommendations.
Okay, all right. So this isn't something that just came out of the blue. It's well-grounded, and you've structured this report to satisfy our interest in where did it come from? What was the genesis of it? We have that. So then, is there something? Is the question really around how much energy we're putting behind this? Because when I look at what you're suggesting here, besides the price, which is substantial, no question about it, should we take from this that there's going to be a selective approach to this? And how can we be sure about that? Because that's what I think I hear you saying, that there are certain areas that should have lighting based on X criteria. And so we shouldn't be expecting that there's going to be a massive investment in lighting in parks or on pathways all over town. How do we control that then?
So through the chair to the mayor, when I mentioned the park lighting in Prochridge, there is park lighting going into the shade structure. There is also conduit that we've put in the event that the town in the future would like to go there. I do think that staff have been working on developing better guidelines and standards, and if you will, a lighting standard for the town of Lincoln, because we don't have that for our parks and our pathways, and we would like to develop that, but that was not completed and is not completed in advance of what we're coming to you and asking you for this evening in approval of this. And we did hear this from the consultant. We did hear this from the ward councillors. We did hear this from residents even at last year's ward meeting that we attended. So it didn't get into last year's budget. Staff have put it forward. If it's something that council would like us to take off at this time and do more work and studies and then come forward, we're happy to do that too.
Okay, so, I mean, normally we would have the standards. We would have accepted a standard, correct? So what was it about this again that encouraged it to be put in? What was the motivating factor that got this into the budget this year?
I would say the motivating factor, through the chair to the Madam Mayor, was the issues that we've been experiencing in Hillary Bald, the citizen feedback that we've been hearing. I participated both in the public ward meeting and in a smaller discussion with residents on their concerns at that park, the consultant's review of that park, and staff's own experience with best practices in other municipalities in dealing with park lighting and pathway lighting.
Okay, so it's not a free for all. You're not going to open it up. You're telling us that you're going to bring a standard forward, and then the standard's going to be applied in a selective way in selective places. So I guess that would be it would be worthwhile for me to hear whether or not that has a bearing on, well, we don't need to do that. We're either going to approve this or we're not. But when are you going to bring that standard forward?
Through you, Chair to Madam Mayor, I'd like to bring it forward in Q1 of next year.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Renchema, your hand is back in the queue. I don't know if that's by error.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I actually didn't put my hand down, but I do have a comment if you'll allow.
Certainly.
Question through to Director McKay. And so is it fair to ask that when you do put these standards together and present them to us in the first quarter of the 2021, that the project before us tonight will be in line with those standards?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, yes, we believe so. That is why we support this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Director McKay. And just one further point before we move on to the next step of this. Just a clarification from Director Graham. Can you confirm or deny that we have roughed in lighting for Conkle Creek pathway?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do. So what we did, since we're doing all the earthworks and construction along Conkle Creek, we've put in underground conduit for the future. So, the trail will be future ready when we decide to light it and when we have those, policies and standards in place.
Love the future focus once again. Perfect. Thank you, Director Graham. So we have had a couple points of contention on this particular project. Is there anyone on council that would like to make an amendment to the project through a motion? I will look for hands. Oh, Councillor Bernay.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting an amendment. I'm only putting it out, just speaking for myself personally. Again, I'm not against, not putting lights in Hillary Bald based on, the ward councillors going out there, NRP and all that. But what I'm hearing is we don't have the standards, but yet we're committed to the standards. And the director has said that, she's hopeful we can bring this forward in the first quarter. So that's 3 months. Personally, I would like to see the standards in place so that moving forward, we can field all the questions that come forward from all the parks and all the trails across the municipality holistically. So, I would love to say, I'd love to support this, but only after we can, get the standards in place in the first quarter. Is that going to impact, moving this project forward? Is it going to delay it if we were to look at that? I'm just putting it out there.
Is that a question to Director McKay?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, to the councillor. No, if you're asking me if we bring the standard forward and then bring the request back at the same time for council to approve with the supporting document and evidence, could we still get the project done in 2021? We could.
Councillor Bernay? My before I see you're pondering, would the standard coming forward change the project at all, Director McKay?
Through you, Chair, we don't believe so. So we believe that in our research and what staff have been working on, that the standard supports the lighting in this park in these 2 locations.
Okay, Councillor Bernay?
Yeah, so personally, I would like to see that amended. Again, I'm not saying I don't want to support this, but I'm just very concerned we're opening up a whole slew of things, and it sounds like we're ready to attack that. We're ready to tie it all up in a standards, through our parks master plan that we've identified that this is something we want to do with trails. And so I would just feel a lot better if we could, if it's not going to delay the project and we're going to work on this through community services, that we put in that friendly amendment. And I know I would support that wholly, and it's not going to hurt the project. I just think from a holistic standpoint of all the parks and opening up other areas in Vineland and Camden and Jordan, it makes sense. That's just my opinion.
So for clarification, Councillor Bernay, are you putting forward a motion to defer until?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Chair.
So just to clarify, so Madam Clerk, that is to defer till Q1.
Until the community services comes forward with a town of Lincoln standards for pathway lighting and trail lighting, And we've heard it's not going to affect the scope of this project that we're talking about. So yes, I'd like to put that amendment in there and bring that to a vote.
Okay, we have two other councillors to speak on that motion, but we have our CAO that would like to make a comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So not to further complicate the matter, and that isn't my intention. This is levy funded. And so an in-year approval makes it, I think, a lot tougher. So the one way you could deal with it is change the motion that the park lighting move forward pending approval of standards by council. But I'm not sure, again, how, and I'll look to others, how we would do this if we're coming in with an in-year approval. This is different than some of the other projects that don't have a levy impact. That would be my only, I think, caution for council, but I leave it in your hands, Chair.
Okay, I know Madam Clerk wants to make a comment, but Councillor Bernay, does that, you're on mute. Councillor Bernay, you're on mute.
No, I do see what the CAO is saying, but I don't think it changes. You know, we could say that we approve it based on the standards being implemented in the first quarter, and basically it would be a budget approval based on that
contingent.
That contingent, yes, absolutely.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, we've done that in the past. We've done that in the past before, so it is somewhat in line with things that we've done in the past, that we make the budget approval contingent on various items and council approval, and then at the end of the day, if council was to at that point in time decide not to move forward, then that is a savings.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Councillor McPherson, Madam Clerk, do you have some commentary?
Yeah, so if Councillor Bernay still would like to move that, we will require a vote.
Right, we will. I'm just.
And so anybody else who's commenting, it has to be about that amendment right now, because that's the motion on the floor.
Okay, so Councillor McPherson, do you have a comment about the motion on the floor?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. So thank you, Mr. Chair. And since I weighed in on the topic, I agree with where this is going. You know, and I also do agree that other than the discussion that we had when the capital budget was first brought forward, we have not discussed, you know, park lighting standards or a standard at council. So I would absolutely support this agreement. I think it makes sense for us to all be on the same page, in agreement, or at least get a majority vote on where we're going with park lighting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And I see no one else in the queue, so we have a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Bernay to defer project 24 Hillary Bald Park lighting to Q1 contingent on these standards being brought to council and agreed upon. Sounds good. Councillor Renchema, do you have, again, we have a motion on the floor. Do you have a commentary on the motion?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. So point clarification, when we say defer, are we saying that the amount is not going to be included in the budget? Do we need to word that motion differently? That the project or that the budget amount be approved, but that the project not be undertaken until it's reviewed by council, subject to the finalization of the park lighting standards.
Good point. I see Mr. Walla nodding her head. Madam Clerk, and I see a lot of heads nodding. Madam Clerk, did you capture that?
Julie hasn't had dinner.
Can rewind the tape.
Okay, I've got that. So what I do want to revert back is to Councillor Brunei. Councillor Brunei, are you in support of that wording to your motion?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Based on the CAO's you know, comments there that you know, we couldn't move forward with this kind of in year beyond the budget approval. Yes, that is exactly what my intention was.
Okay,
We worded it now.
perfect. So there being no one else, that motion is on the floor and I will call the vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brunet. And Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Regina,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Chair Russell,
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Support.
and that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I know it is now 9:59, and my moderate memory reminds me that we are approaching, or we are now at our time limit, and we need to call a vote to extend beyond our 10 p.m. requirement. Is that not correct, Madam Clerk?
It is, thank you. So at this point in the meeting, we do require 2/3 vote to request that council continue beyond the hour of 10 p.m. until completed as noted in the town's procedural bylaw. May I have a show of hands, please? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We are moving on to project number 25 to get the momentum going back again, playground resurfacing. Do any council members have any questions or concerns? I see Councillor McPherson right under the batter's box.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification. So this is depending on a decision that is yet to be made on the grant. So barring the unforeseen and not expecting that we will get a no, but if we were to get a no, does this just go away and the reserve money goes back to the reserve? Is that how that works, Mr. CAO, or through to Terry?
Through the chair, that's correct. That's how it would work. The reserve funds wouldn't come out. That's that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And, oh, perfect. Okay. I see no other hands, questions or concerns from council. Oh, Councillor McPherson, back in. You're not? Okay, that is just fine. So, seeing no other questions or concerns, we will move on to project 26, the accessibility audit deficiencies. Any councillors have any questions or concerns, any clarification on? Seeing none, and I forgive me if my pauses in between are getting shorter. Make sure you alert me if I'm being too hasty. Project 27, self-watering hanging baskets. Do any councillors have any questions or concerns? Oh, Councillor Brunet.
Chair Russell, I'm starting to sound like a broken record. On behalf of my ward mate who's absent tonight, he brings emphatic support to the watering baskets. FCM is supporting these. There's a payback within 3 years, and all positives with regards to anybody that wants to drive up to Mount Osborne and see how the flowers are doing. So Councillor Pachariva is in full support of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Brunet, and that was very emphatic. I like that. Very Councillor Pachariva-like. We have Councillor Renchema in the queue. If you'd like to please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Yeah, I just wanted to also support, because we've heard this a couple of times when this has come forward, that that the costs, the initial capital cost is outweighed by the labor costs that it takes to go out and water these baskets all the time. Hiring somebody to go out and do that, we get our money back. I think Councillor Pachariva just said 3 years. I don't know that for a fact, but it sounds good to me. I think that's what we've heard. So maybe can we get confirmation of that from the director? And
Yes, through you, Chair, to the councillor. Yes, on page 119 of the handout, the budget book, is the return on investment calculations showing that year 3.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And seeing no other hands in the queue, we'll move on to project 28, asset and work management system. Any councillors have any questions or concerns? Councillor Gemma, your hand is still in the queue. I'm not sure if you're re-entering or not. Now you are. Now you're not. Okay, I see no other hands in the queue, whether they're flashing or not. We will move on to project 29, the collaboration portal, in parenthesis, intranet. Any questions or concerns from council? Any clarification on? All right. Looks good. We will then move on to project 30, recreation and facility booking system. Ooh, Councillor McPherson.
So just a comment, very, very good to see us moving forward on these corporate systems master plan items as the ink is barely dry on that plan, and already we're looking at priority project number 2 and number 3, along with priority project number 11. So very, very good to see that, and I think it will be a challenge. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Any change like this throughout the organization is going to be challenging, but I think we've got the certainly the staff to make it all happen, and I think the results are going to be shown certainly for our residents over the next number of years. My only question here is, as I read it, we've got 2 business analysts coming on that are IT focused. Do we need to?
And that is a question to our CAO.
I would think.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, and I think Mr. Walla does want to make some comments, but I think, you know, we're going to look at the project management requirements of this and look at what sort of consulting services are required, or what sort of implementation assistance is required. And I would tell you, Councillor, I don't think we've flushed that out. I mean, I understand that concern. I think we're always looking at what sort of human resources are required to put in these systems. We do have a consultant that's assisted us and said 2 may be required, but at the end of the day, that may not be the case. And while I know this is funded through our through the modernization grant and that reserve, I still think we need to look at those things. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Trawala, who may have some additional comments on that.
Through the chair, the intention is only to hire one business analyst, one temporary contract business analyst, in order to help with the project management and the change management that's needed. That one business analyst would work on all of these projects, even though they're mentioned in a few of them. And then within the project themselves, as they're doing the project management, they may look at if there's additional resources that are required, they may bring it in, but that's all included within the scope of the project that's here. But at this time, we only anticipate needing one business analyst.
Music to my ears. So as I read it, and this is all capital levy as the reports are showing. So as I read the 2 reports, the collaboration portal and the recreation facility booking system being a total of 106,000, that's to one business analyst. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it would contribute to the business analyst, but that also includes the implementation cost of the systems themselves as well. So those aren't all staff dollars. That also includes the technology as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. And our CEO still has his hand up. I don't think he has any more commentary because what he said was poetic. So seeing no other questions or concerns raised by council, we will move on to the project number 30, the recreation and facility booking system. Any questions or concerns from council? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to project 31, wayfinding, gateway, and community signage. Any questions or concerns? And I know Councillor Pachariva sent over a note to Councillor Brunet because I see him feverishly looking through pages. So if anybody has any questions or concerns, by all means, now is the time. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Project 32, the IT equipment renewal and upgrades. Always a fan favorite. Any questions or concerns from council? Okay, seeing none, we move on to Project 33, the BDSS redevelopment secondary plan. Any questions or concerns from council? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to Project 34, Community Benefits Study Bylaw and DC Bylaw. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns from council? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to Project 35, the Fleet Replacement and Expansion. Any questions or concerns or clarifications needed from council? Okay, I see none. Before we go to, as I said it would be last, the discussion on the special infrastructure levy, I want to just open it up to see if there's anyone on council would like to, through a motion, add any projects. So if there's anybody on council that'd like to make a motion to add any projects, now is the time. Councillor McPherson?
So through you, Mr. Chair, through no surprise, I make a motion to add the First Street redevelopment to the capital budget.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McPherson. Just a clarification from staff. We did remove one project, and I know that was one of the discussion points in the presentation. Any concerns with adding this at this point in time? As far as financing and or timeliness of work getting completed, as that was mentioned.
Through Mr. Chairman, why don't I take a stab at answering that question? I think from a financing perspective, we don't have any concerns with doing that in terms of the identified funding sources. And Director Graham and I did have a quick conversation earlier during the break in terms of capacity. And so I would, I guess my simple answer to that is no.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone on council have any pertinent questions regarding the motion? Councilor Gemma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might have missed a little bit of what the CAO just said, so forgive me if my question is, if he had just answered it. But I have in my notes that the design work's not complete for First Avenue. So is that true, and does that affect the timing of our ability to get it done?
Director Graham could probably answer that.
Sure.
For you, Chair.
Yep. Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Rajima. The design work is well underway. It's probably 70% completed. It's a fairly straightforward design. And so I don't see that being an issue. We can get the design completed and get the project tendered as we look into next year. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gemma, and thank you, Director Graham. Councillor Reimer, you have a question about the motion?
Thank you, Chair Russell. Yes, I do support the motion. I just have one question clarification to Director Graham. Does this, the region is doing redoing downtown Vineland, and we've discussed the stormwater concerns there or issues. Does us redoing First Street at all, is it going to be redone again? Like, do they need access down there for stormwater management?
Through Mr. Chairman to the councillor, no, not that I'm aware of at all. No, I believe the most of the stormwater for the King Street project is going out the Tallman Drive area.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Okay,
Councillor Reimer, does that answer your question?
Does.
Okay, Thank you, Councillor Reimer. Councillor Brunei, you have a question regarding the motion.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, I'm not going to speak, for or against adding the First Avenue. I know there are a number of people over there that have been advocating for this for quite some time. But I guess from a capacity standpoint, I mean, I listened to Director Graham, and he seemed to have some concerns before the break about capacity. I guess, when I look at what happened this year with multiple projects going on at the same time on Elizabeth Street and Lincoln Estates, we're going to have Friesen Boulevard, which is okay. We still haven't finished phase one. We still got to go back in and do all the top asphalt and everything over there. Now we're starting phase two. I guess my question is, let's not forget about Rittenhouse Road, which has been delayed, hasn't started yet. I just don't want to get into a situation that halfway through next year where we're hearing that Rittenhouse Road is affected because we're starting First Avenue and we've got too many projects in. That's all I'm saying here. I'm not trying to advocate for or against First Avenue, but I'm certainly concerned about capacity. I've witnessed firsthand through numerous residents concerned this year on projects that were going simultaneously. I'm very concerned about Friesen Boulevard, Rittenhouse Road, and First Avenue if they're gonna be working collaboratively together simultaneously. That's my only concern. I'm just putting it on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brunei. Director Graham, do you want to make any further comment to the concerns raised by Councillor Brunei?
Through Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, I mean, thanks for the comments. We are looking at an additional project management support with our Jordan Village project as well, given our workload. So, we are going to have some project management resources to help us out with this large program that we're bringing forward. So we have considered that with our capacity and don't have those types of concerns.
Okay, thank you, Director Graham. Councillor Brunei.
Perfect. Get her added.
Okay, thank you. We're going to vote first. I want to jump ahead here. So we have a motion on the floor moved by Councillor McPherson that Council approve the addition of First Avenue project to the 2021 budget in the amount of 1.3 million funded from the water and wastewater and long-term borrowing. Madam Clerk, can you call the vote?
Thank you, Councillor Brunei.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miklik.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rajima.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support.
And that carries.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Does any member of council have anything other they wish to add to the capital budget for 2021? Okay, seeing none. We do have to address the special infrastructure levy. So as discussed in the presentation earlier and at length in some of our previous meetings, we have a couple options ahead of us. We have the ability to add a 1% infrastructure or special infrastructure levy, or we can go with the 0% infrastructure levy. So does anybody have any comments or concerns that they would like to share now about either avenue for which we can choose a course? Okay, I see no questions. Oh, we have Councillor Miklik. Deputy Mayor Miklik, my apologies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. With regards to this special levy, is there any way to direct it specifically towards road rehabilitation or roads? Like residents, that seems to be the number one thing that we hear, that fix the roads, fix the roads. We're debating whether to go 0 or 1. I'm still not 100%. This special levy, it's before my time, so I don't know. It's a special levy, and is this something that is accounted on, a depended on amount to make things happen within the town? I'm not sure. The funds go to a reserve fund, and it funds a number of items, but what specifically does this special levy fund?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So that would either be to Mr. Walla. I see the hand shaking, moving.
Through you, Chair. The special infrastructure levy, it does go into the infrastructure reserve fund. A portion of it also goes into our building and facility reserve fund, as well as our equipment reserves. So it is primarily used for roads and our culvert replacement program too, that has been picking up steam over the past couple of years. However, it is used at the discretion of council. We bring them forward within these capital projects here, and then the majority of the road program there does include the funding from the infrastructure reserve fund as well. So I would suggest not limiting it to say just roads, as council can choose what it goes towards anyways. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But could you give me an idea of what percentage goes towards roads?
Yeah. Apologies.
Oh, no. It's a question that just came up during the meeting. So.
And while that is happening, and we let Ms. Trawala seek some information on her Dewey laptop, we will need, right now I believe we are coming in with a 0% increase. So if we want to amend that to a 1%, we will need a mover on the motion, or someone to create the motion to increase it to 1%, just to put that out there. If anybody's interested in that, for us to proceed, we will do that. If not, we will stay at the 0%.
So through the chair, in 2021, of the reserve funds that are listed there, about 900,000 is currently being used from the infrastructure reserve to fund the road program.
Okay, so a good portion of it then.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Walla. Mayor Easton.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion to establish the infrastructure levy at 1% for 2021.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a motion on the table. Is there any commentary or questions on the motion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you'd like to read the motion, moved by Mayor Easton. Or I could do Mayor. We have a motion moved by Mayor Easton to establish the special infrastructure levy for 2021 at 1%. Madam Clerk, could you call it the vote?
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That essentially wraps up our capital project review. If there's any other questions or comments on the review process, please ask them now. Otherwise, we will move on to the conclusion of our agenda. Any questions or concerns?
Good job,
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Chair.
Madam Mayor, your hands up.
I just said good job, Mr. Chair.
Oh, well, thank you, Madam Mayor.
But I will lower my hand. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to give you a virtual high five on my screen. Okay, well, there being no further discussion regarding item 7.2, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers to receive and file as information the 2021 proposed capital budget and fees presentation. I will now ask our clerk to call with the vote.
Thanks, Chair Russell. Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor McClick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Chair Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no confidential items this evening. Do we have any committee remarks? Okay, seeing none, I just want to thank all members of council and the staff for all of the efforts they put into this evening and to all the work gone into the capital project. Again, the due diligence everyone has taken forth is obviously very, very upfront and is well worth the endeavor. So we appreciate all your time and effort. With that being said, we also like to thank a quick thank you to the viewers at home. They may have stuck with us this entire time and foregone any Christmas merriment or Christmas show watching. So that being said, there being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 10:25 p.m. Everyone have a wonderful